Hi, friends and family,
Welcome to Hope After Addiction
with your hosts, Katie Comer
and Chelsea McLeod.
Hi, welcome to Hope After Addiction. We're so happy you've joined us today. We have a special guest again on the podcast. This is Alex. So if you don't know who Alex is, that means you didn't watch last episode. And so we encourage you, go back, watch her testimony. It was so powerful, so rich with, especially for the loved ones. And that's typically who watches our podcast. It's so rich for you all to listen to and super encouraging for you all in your journeys as you're walking through this with your loved one who is probably going through addiction if you're watching this. And so go back, watch that episode. Today, we are going to be asking her just some questions specifically to her testimony to kind of pull out some extra things that she walked through during her season and still walking through just as she it's just our journeys are continual when we're dealing with this stuff. And so so we have some questions for you and
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's go. Q&A, my favorite.
Fun.
Yes. Okay. So you touched a little bit about this on the testimony, so make sure you watch it. Yeah. But this is a big one that I think our listeners' loved ones forget about. And so I just want you to dive into this a little bit more. But so often the journey seems to be geared to our loved ones. But what did that journey look like for you?
Yeah. So I think that, as Chelsea just said, it is so easy for us to drown when our loved ones are sinking and make everything about them, their story. It's their addiction, which it is, but also like while God is, I think something people need to hear is like, while God is working in them, God absolutely wants to work in you. And I think that he will do just as much in a loved one as he will in you. And it's up to both to decide to allow God to do that in you, right? God's got the power to heal all, to do anything. He's a God of, he created the universe, breathed stars into the universe. So he has the power, but it's choosing to allow yourself to be surrendered to him and his will and allow his peace and his joy to come into you and permeate your being and manifest in your heart. And I think for me, I identified so much as like the side story to Clayton's story. Like I wasn't my story wasn't good enough, or my story really was just even when I would like say things about Clayton's addiction, it's like, oh, I'm so sorry for what he's going through. I'm so sorry for you got Clayton, I'm so proud of you and like what you've walked through. And it's you're kind of left behind in a sense. Sometimes it feels like well, I didn't have the problem, but it was a problem for me. Like I was there in the pit with him. You know what I mean? Like, and I had my own things to deal with. Like, anxiety, depression, OCD, just a lot of mental health issues that had come up during all of that. And God was the only thing that provided me peace. Like no pill, no nothing is going to give you any kind of peace like God can give you. It's all just like temporary and fleeting moments of happiness or comfort. It's like the only thing that has like permanent peace that can literally fill, like you have a God-sized hole in you that only he can fill. And I think for so long, like, my dad, I tried to fill my dad, like the love for my dad. I tried to fill the hole with Clayton and like the love and like the acceptance and the affirmation and like wanting to be with me. And I've noticed that like my whole life, I've kind of sought out the things that God wanted to give me in another human, another man. And like, humans are always going to let you down. Humans are always going to fail. They're not perfect. And God is the only constant that I can say in my life. Like he is the rock that I stand on. And he is the one that's transformed my heart. He is the one that's lifted anxiety and depression from me. He is the one that I can surrender all things to. It's also your story. But I talk to some of the wives now, they're going through like this season of their life and they're so consumed by what their husband's going through. Yeah. And I understand it because I was there. I was so there. But I try to just really focus the conversation not at all even really about them, because like this is a great time in that midst of your chaos and your darkness for God to pull you in closer to him and for you allow yourself to be pulled in close to him. And he will do such a work in you, like what he's done in my life. Like I could sit up here for years and talk about it because he's just so good. And that peace and that freedom is also for you. And it's also your story, and your story is just as important, and your story has meaning and has purpose. And yeah, I just think that God is in all things, and for a long time I didn't allow him to be the Lord of my life and do all these things for me and lift all these things from me, and thought it was all about Clayton and made my life all about Clayton. And I know now today I can genuinely 100% say, like, no matter what happens in my life, like, I am going to be okay because God's got me. Like, he's got me in the palm of his hand. He's got you in the palm of his hand, and he didn't forsake me. He didn't leave me where I was at, and he doesn't bring you this far to just bring you this far.
Yeah.
So that's what I got on that.
Yeah, no, I love that. And the one thing a good friend, mentor reminded me of in my darkness was that you are a daughter of God. Mm-hmm. And he sees the pain. He sees the depression. He sees the darkness. Mm-hmm. And to think that he's going to let you sit there and not do anything to raise you up and to heal you, like, we're mistaken. We're missing it. Mm-hmm. And so to know that, like, you are a child, like, he made you, he created you, he died for you, like, Jesus died for you, he loves you, and he sees you right now, like, he saw you in that pit.
Yep.
And that story is just as much for you. And I think it's so important that you said that to tell our listeners, like, this is your story.
Yeah.
Your healing, your walk.
Yeah, he'll snatch you from that pit of darkness just as much as he'll snatch your loved one. And you can't control whether he snatches your loved one unless the loved one lets him. But you can control whether or not he snatches you up.
Amen, sister.
Let him snatch you, honey. You know?
Yeah, that's right. I love that. Yes.
And he created you and us for such a time as this.
Yes.
And to remember that your journey is going to be used for something. And so being reminded of that. And I'm so thankful that God has used our stories in this platform. It's just amazing because there's so many people that walk this journey, really. And it's amazing that God, for such a time as this, has used us in this out of the hurt into redemption. It's beautiful. So
it is.
So what did community mean to you as you were walking through this journey? Like, what did your community mean?
Yeah, so I was not about the community life when I was going through the pit of my darkness. And so that's a really big thing for me to share now, is just looking back how I wish I would have been in community. And like, Chelsea was somebody who had reached out to me, like, while Clayton was either at S2L or going through it in between. And I just honestly, like, it was such an attack from the enemy. Like, he wanted me to be in such isolation.
Yes.
He didn't want anybody speaking life into me. And I was so, like, hurt and, like, jaded and just figuring myself out. Like, I was so, like, not wanting to allow anyone else in, you know? And that honestly is it's sad for me, because I could have had such a much better, not necessarily experience. I could have just had people surrounding me, and if I would have allowed it. I had multiple women reach out to me, and I just, like, shut it down, or just, like, didn't put much effort back into it. And it wasn't against you or anybody. No. It was just about me and where I was at. Like, I just was, like, not trusting of anyone. And this is, like, when God was working on me and, like, my heart. But I can tell you, like, God has really put it on my heart that community is so important, and, like, surrounding yourself with other people that are going to speak life into you and support you while you're going through that time. Like, you are not meant to walk that alone. And the enemy wants you to be in isolation, and God calls us to live life in community. And so I was literally not living in God's will while I was trying to separate myself from people that were literally trying to help me. I, like, didn't want the help, or maybe I didn't think I was deserving of it. I really don't know. But I wasn't able to let people in, and just didn't want to let people into my darkness. I wanted to, like, let the darkness, to an extent, kind of, like, swallow me up at times. Like, I just wanted to sit in it. And at times had a hard time getting out. And that's, again, where I lean on God. And he helped pull me out of that. But to anyone listening, community is just so important. And if you are going through something alone, dealing with a loved one that's, you know, struggling with addiction, whatever it may be, make sure you tell somebody, because somebody that can support you, find groups, find the podcast, find somebody that you feel like you can connect with, because it's just so important to have, like, good godly counsel as well while you're in that. And, like, not judgment, but just, like, people speaking life into you and wanting to lift you up. And for me, I know when I talk to women now, like, God's, like, really turn that ship of community around for me. I feel like I have too many people to talk to now. It's like, no, if I talk to you, you're not too much. But I feel like the opposite has happened in my life. God's like, you don't want this, you're gonna do this. But I feel like now it's like I am genuinely trying to help other women going through what they're going through and letting them know the story is also about you. You know, just so many women I talk to, it's, you know, not about them. They like lose sight of like them. It's like all about the other person. And it's just a distraction from the enemy to like keep you from your grace and keep you from your freedom and your peace, to make it about somebody else. But the community aspect is just crucial, because iron sharpens iron, and you can't hear what somebody else is like, what the Lord is saying through somebody else if you're not talking to somebody else that's in the Lord, right? That's somebody that's maybe a little further along in their journey than you, or that's going through it with you. I just think seeking good, godly counsel is so important. And I say godly counsel because I was talking to people at the time, but they weren't speaking the kind of life into me necessarily that I needed all the time, right? It's like they weren't. I think making sure you're seeking out counsel that is somebody that is in their Bible, in their word, praying, and is going to give you words that aren't just from them, but like are genuinely from God to give to you. Because the world will tell you to run. The world's going to tell you to bounce. And at times, I don't know what the situation could be. Maybe that is what God eventually has happen in some certain circumstances. But I would say for the majority of it, like God can restore your marriage or your relationship. God can restore all things. He can heal all things. He's restored my marriage. He's restored my relationship. And he's restored me. And none of these things, like I got to these like honestly breakthroughs way later in life because I wasn't having community around me. Like I could have had a lot earlier. I feel like I could have been further along in my journey had I had other people speaking into my life. Like it just... You don't learn like just by yourself. No one's on fire for God by themselves. And if they are, you don't see them. So I don't know if they are. But it's much easier to like light each other's matches and just speak life and, you know, give each other, you know, what they may need at the time. So community is important. If you're not in community, find a sister in Christ because you need them.
It's true. It's so important. Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay. I think that it is. You made a point about... I didn't have that, you know, for a while. And you said, I know it's the enemy. And it really is. Yeah. Because he doesn't want you to shine your light. No. And he knows as soon as you do and you find that community, it's only going to spark something in you to go therefore and do it again to somebody else. And so I did the same thing. I feel like a lot of times, and I don't know if this might not have been it for you, but for me, I did not find community early on in my healing journey because of the shame. I felt like this should not be my life. Like, what? I was supposed to be married with a white picket fence with kids, and what? I have a husband who's an addict. That is wild. And so I didn't want to share that with anybody. But I do know once I did start sharing it, there was a peace that God gave me that I never would have thought would be there when I shared it with other people. And so I think that you're right. I think that there's a tendency to hide it, especially beginning on. So it's an encouragement to you all listening. If you are hiding it and you're not sharing it with anybody, it's the devil that is really creating that in you, because there is hope and there is healing that comes from having a community.
Totally. 100%.
So, it's funny because I find it fascinating to find out how similar so many stories are.
That's true.
You know, and I did it. You did it. I know from you did it. And I think a lot of times for me, I was so betrayed and untrusting that talking to somebody and letting somebody in my world, I didn't know who to trust.
Yes, totally.
So I isolated from the enemy wanted that. And it's hard because a lot of people do it. And I tell a lot of wives that I work with, I'm like, brace yourself. A lot of parents do it because of embarrassment. Well, what did you do as a parent for them to do that?
Yeah.
Nothing. It's not your fault. And so it's important to know, like, be vulnerable. Yeah. It's a blessing. It's beautiful. It catapults you into healing. Yeah. And it's just a special thing to have community. And we can all vouch that it changes the whole trajectory of your healing journey.
It does.
But I also know in that time, was when I was so intimate with Jesus.
Yeah.
Because I was running straight to him and not depending on anybody else. And so it's so, Alex said, like, you need community. God commands us to have community. In those quiet times, also just run to Jesus, you know.
Run to him like Forrest Gump, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Run, Forrest, run.
That's
Forrest,
right.
Run,
It's
Alex, run.
so good. Yes.
Good.
I love it. Okay, next question. How have you seen God use all of this for his glory?
I mean, I just think, we don't go through anything for nothing. You know what I mean? I think that if we can turn to God in the chaos and the darkness, like, we're meant to share our testimony and to impact other people with what we've been through. Like, it's not, and I think also the enemy doesn't want us to share our testimony because it is like literally a telling of God's glory and goodness and what he has done in the transformation of your life. But I think we're called to do that. And I think that, I mean, I'm married now. I have restoration in my marriage. I have like a husband that actually leads, and is like walking out his purpose. Like, his identity isn't in addiction. His identity isn't in work. It's just in the Lord. And I feel like, myself even, like, I feel like I was always a quote unquote good person, right? You know, but I feel like God has just enhanced the things. Like, I feel like when you're doing something for the Lord, it just goes so much further, you know, when it's not just of you. And I feel like for me right now, I have felt like this feeling to, this call in my life to help other women going through what I've gone through, and to be in community with them and to support them. And it's just funny because, like, that is the last thing I used to want to do, you know, and God's like, you shall do it. And I'm like, all right. But it's just, I think that our testimonies can help impact other people's lives. And he's just moved in my life time and time again. It's like, when they say, like, the devil, it's like a game of chess. When he, like, makes a move, the God's like, I got another move, like, checkmate, like, I got you, you know. And it's like, I've seen him move time and time in my life again, and just anything good in my life that I have is from him. And I literally would not have any of the things that I've had in my life, or blessings, or just anything, if it wasn't for him. Nothing. And he's just been able to transfer my marriage, my relationship, myself, my heart. And also what's really cool is, like, my brother came down this past weekend. He's 19 years old, goes to UC, going through some things, anxiety and stuff. And he didn't grow up as much, like, knowing, like, of God even. Like, it just, we had different upbringings. He was raised by my mom and my stepfather, and I was raised by my parents. So just a little different. But this weekend I was able to, you know, share the truth and the goodness of God. And, like, he got saved this past weekend.
Aww,
and it was just
that's
really
so cool.
special to be a part of. And by no means was that anything to do with Alex, but I was able to be a part of it and, like, kind of help answer questions and, like, push him in the right direction. So I'm just saying, like, what God's going to do in you is not just for you, and it's going to be for somebody else. And like it's like that song. It's like, and your family and their family and your children and their children. It's just like it's breaking generational curses. It's drawing a line in the sand. And it's just, his goodness has really truly transformed my life, and by doing that, it's meant to help other people find that same kind of freedom and transformation that he's done for me, for Clayton, and we'll be able to both help people that can only relate to us, right? Like, not many people can for sure relate to us. That's why we're in this, you know, and why people find this and watch this, because there's not a lot of resources out there for people going through it. But God does have good plans for you. He is a good God with good plans, and if he brought you to it, he'll bring you through it. And if you are in that darkness, I just encourage you to lean into God in that time, and, like, allow him to really transform and remove anything in your heart that's not of him. And I think that when that happens, you're going to be able to give that to somebody else and share that gospel with somebody else, and just, like, the good news of the Lord, that who the Son sets free is free indeed. And that's what I got.
So good.
So what is one piece of advice that you would give somebody walking the same journey? Like, if you could give, like, one piece of advice, what would you?
Yes. For sure, it would be to let go and let God. We do not have the power to save our loved ones. We have the power to support them. We have the power to rely on God's strength in us. We have, you know, ability to speak life into them and encourage them in what they're going through. But, like, I pray for anybody going through what they're going through to just allow the peace of God to permeate your being and to manifest in you, and just to know that he is with you, he is for you, he is a good God, and he's not going to forsake you and leave you where you're at. And the story is also for you, and just let him in, let him deal with the person you're praying about. And he will. And I just think that allowing yourself to surrender to God and knowing that you're not in control. Like many times I've tried to take the wheel from Jesus and I'm like, I can drive better than you, God. I'm Formula One over here. And he's like, honey, no, you can't. Give me the wheel. And I'm like, fine.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, Jesus, take the wheel. Gary Underwood said. It's just, I, have many times tried to pull that wheel from God. And I will tell you, the only time that I have had true transformation, or even that my husband had true transformation, is truly when I completely let go in my heart of Clayton and just of the things of my life that I was not in control of, and literally gave them to God. And that is when I had real peace. That is when I had real joy amongst the chaos. Yeah. And that is when I had real change in my life and transformation in my life. And it's crazy because honestly, me letting go and let God, surrendering in that way, actually allowed Clayton to let go and let God, because it was just, I allowed him to get alone with God, where God was the only thing that he had left. Instead of me being that hand to always pick him up, where I was weighing myself down, drowning. You can't do it forever. You're probably worn out and exhausted and tired, and I know what it feels like, but just let him lead, let him, fill your heart, let him feel, have the Holy Spirit come into you and guide you and lead you, and just know that God will use all things for good. So just let go and let him, because he's got a better plan than you. His timing is better than yours. And he will not let you down. And he's the only thing in this world that won't.
Yeah. Ooh. There's a reason we have 2 or 3 episodes on surrender.
Yeah. Yes, there is.
Because it's huge.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's
and
everything.
That's, one of my key places in my testimony is when I surrendered my situation with Adam. And Adam even had a painting drawn up of an image that when I surrendered on my hands and my knees in my parents' bedroom, crying out to the Lord, Adam had that painted for me, and it's hanging up in our house. Really cool. And it was the truest form of surrender I've ever felt. Is when I let go and try to control the situation of, is he going to go to rehab? Is he not going to go to rehab? Is he going to be okay? Are we going to stay married? Are we going to get divorced? I don't know. But when I just released it, instead of, we always talk about doing this and tightening up your fists and holding on to what you thought was right. When you just God, your will be done. Yeah. That was the truest form of surrender, was when I was in the midst of that. And so it was life changing. It's something that I always remember. And God, take me back to those times when I'm thinking about my kids, and are they doing good in school? What kind of friends are they going to have? Are they going to grow up being okay? What kind of testimony are they going to have? God, help protect them. Let go. Yeah. Just let go and let God. Yep. It's
lay your Isaac down. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Abraham brought his son to literally be sacrificed, and trusted in God that God's plan is better. I don't know why you're doing this, God, but I know that you're in it, and I'll give you anything. And for so long, I held on to Clayton so tightly that I wouldn't release him to God. And so like you said, I think that's a really good symbol, visual of if you're holding on to that loved one so tight, literally let them go. And lay your Isaac down. It's just that God, and trust that God's got him or her or whoever it may be, because he does, and he's got you, and you're not alone in the situation. And he's with you and he's for you.
That's right. Yeah. That's beautiful.
So good.
Anything else?
I'm just encouraged.
Okay, good. That's good. Well, Alex, you are a beautiful blessing, and we're so thankful that you decided to come out and share your story. I truly believe that we are going to have some listeners that just really resonate with your story, and really find hope and comfort. And that's truly what this podcast is about for our listeners, is just to find something that they can grab a hold of and say, okay, God's got this. Yeah. And he had your story from the time it started till now. And as it continues to grow, I'm excited to see your story and how it unfolds for you and Clayton. And so thank you so much for coming.
No, thank you so much for having me. It has been such a blessing. And I hope that the listeners got something out of this today.
They did.
And you let go and let God. And we are praying for you and what you're going through, and you're not alone.
Thank you, Alex.
Yes.
Well, we do. We hope you felt encouraged today, and we are so thankful for you listeners. If you find this on any of our social media platforms, make sure you share it, because that's how we get the word out on who we are. If you're seeing us on any of the podcast platforms or on YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe so you can see the next episode that gets released. We again are so thankful that we have you as listeners. We hope that you felt encouraged, and we hope that you have a blessed day, and we'll see you next week. Bye.